And we are live. Welcome, everybody. Hey, so tonight's kind of an easy one. We're just going to talk a little bit about homesteading and how that works in contrast to farming. And so, whether we want to call it a homestead, whether we want to call it a hobby farm or whatever, the big distinction here, and what we're going to be digging into tonight, myself and my guests, we're going to be trying to work through what it means to have something that isn't generating income per se, or at the very least isn't supporting itself completely. Uh, I would say that a farm supports itself completely, or nearly completely, nearly completely. So maybe there's another stream of income that ends up jumping in sometimes on new projects, but overall the farm is taking care of itself. So that's my thoughts on what we're digging into tonight. And so the idea is going to be basically with a hobby farm or with the homestead, you're only limited by how much money you're willing to put into something and how big your dreams are. This is again going to be uh, in contrast to saying, yeah, I need the farm to be able to support $100,000 tractor or a $300,000 tractor or whatever it is that's going on. So with that, I've got Mr. Abot Grenfield with me tonight, and then we're expecting Mr. Middleton Whittaker to join us in a little bit. But Abbott, how are you doing?
Doing great and real excited to be here. I'm kind of that aspiring homesteader, I guess, hobby farmer. Trying to do my best to learn from a real farmer over here, who's
Yeah,
doing real well in business. So
I'm I'm doing my best, but we'll see how it goes. So, yep, I think
right.
every year
Uh,
it's a question of how far we want to keep going. So, yeah, the first
that's
generation
awesome.
thing is, yeah. Well, we appreciate it. We're grateful to have the opportunity. All right. Oh, actually, looks like Whit might have just gotten in here. Whit, can you hear us?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I hear you just fine. You hear him, Abbott?
Yep, loud and clear.
Awesome.
All right.
I'm gonna mute myself and be mucking around with my audio. I'm sorry I'm late, guys. I've been running into just unending technical issues on my end, so I apologize.
No worries. No
All
worries.
good. All good.
All right. So I've already explained the distinction. Wit, in case you didn't hear what I was telling Abbott and sort of leading off into this stream with, is my idea is a homestead and a hobby farm. Those are in contrast to an operational farm. The idea with an operational farm being that it completely pays for all of the operations, if not the continued growth. And so maybe there is a project or something where there's a separate stream of income that comes in and helps out, but by and large, the actual day-to-day operations the farm pays for, and it's self-sustaining. So that's the distinction I'm making. Whereas a hobby farm, a homestead, you're only going to be limited by you know your your capital that you're willing to put into it and whatever your dreams are. All right. So building off that, I think it starts off with how do we want to do it, and is it something that can be done on basically any piece of property in the U.S. And I think by and large, any piece of property in the U.S. can operate as some form of a homestead. And so whether that begins with potted plants and then moves on to raised beds, let's see, potted plants, raised beds, family garden, and then you start getting into, once you get past family garden, that's when you would start getting into the business side of having market gardens or single crops, something like that would be my thoughts. But what are you guys doing, Abbott? Are you? I know you're not in the most, and so that's a separate issue. Infrastructure wise, you could probably do this anywhere in the U.S., but then weather wise, that's a completely separate issue. What are you guys trying to do on the garden side?
Yeah, I think definitely if you're up in Idaho or something, or you're near the coast, or you're out in the east, I think it is quite a bit easier. We're down here in the southwest Arizona, so it's pretty brutal, and we are very limited. You can usually get most trees going, but getting them to be high producers is pretty difficult. And so we were originally living in the city for a while. We would do a little garden there. Um, and that was kind of that other form you were talking about of trying to suburban kind of style homesteading. And so we grow stuff like potatoes. We can get those going really well. Sometimes you can get strawberries. Tomatoes is another popular one that we've had luck with. Right now, we've got a little bit of apricots are kind of our main tree that we've got going. We've got like 4 or 5 of those that make quite a bit each year. Um, but I'm just trying a little bit of everything and trying to figure out what works best on this little plot of land that we on this. We're on about 3.5, 4 acres, so not a ton, but enough to be able to be dangerous, I guess.
Yeah. Now, do you guys end up having to bring in a lot of dirt? How do you manage actually growing vegetables and produce?
I bring in some, so I will go to the Walmart and buy their biggest. It's like a $6 bag, and I like to put that in planters.
Hmm.
And so I've had pretty good luck with that. With some of it, we have so much chicken manure and goat manure. We've been able to turn some of the more sandy dirt and stuff into pretty decent growing. We grew probably about 50 square feet of wheat that we were able to feed to the animals. We were trying out, we
Yeah.
got some cheap Chinese grain and we were able to grow that stuff.
Okay.
So it basically buying what we can and then making what we can from the animal waste and composting.
That's crazy. Very good. Very good. Yeah. So, um, with the seeds, how do you guys go about choosing what seeds you're going to do?
I have
Do
just
you,
kind of been shooting from the hip. I mean, a lot of the,
yeah.
if we're doing just a little bit, like a couple planters, we're going and buying those burpees seeds, from like
Uh huh.
Tractor Supply or Walmart or something. But
Yes.
I have talked to a few feed supply stores and I've gotten a few, maybe like 30-pound sacks out of
Yes.
places like that. Usually odd stuff that they weren't able to move that they gave to me cheap. Like I think I've got a bunch of daikon radish or something I haven't tried yet.
Okay. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what I've been able to do on the cheap, I guess, has been kind of the goal, small and cheap, and just finding what works. It's because it's been a challenge,
Hmm.
figuring out what we can grow in kind of the mountain desert out here, what the
I
climate
can't
will
imagine that.
support.
Yeah, I know for myself, if I was trying to grow out there, I think one, I'm super impressed that you guys are actually trying to change the soil itself. But I think if I was doing it, man, it would probably all be raised beds and just managed pockets of soil. So I'm impressed that you guys are actually trying to change the soil itself and give yourself a larger bed to work with. I
And
know,
slowly and surely.
yeah. Yeah, well, and that's a good point because I'm saying that, and where I live, the soil is not. It's it's okay for certain things. It's not great for most things. But yeah, what'll happen is you see year after year, especially if you're trying to collect nutrients, get them back into the ground, and put in on different, whether it's some form of animal litter or actual fertilizer. If you're doing something to restore nutrients, that will make a marked difference probably in whichever environment you're in, I would think. The only way that wouldn't make a difference is if you are in extremely inhospitable areas, whether it's portions of a tundra, a desert, something along those lines. But outside of that, yeah, I think managing both fertilizer slash litter as well as trying to put natural nutrients back in the ground through nitrogen collection or whatever. It seems to me that could help you quite a bit. So, with that being said, on the homestead thing, the easiest way I think to do it is I keep referencing potted plants. I keep talking about raised beds. The potted plants are super simple. Grab a literal pot, a planting pot. not a cooking pot. Because what you want is you want something with drainage. You want to be able to throw some good dirt in there. The dirt you don't have to worry about because you're not really picking up any dirt. You're just going to Walmart, Tractor Supply, whatever, and you're getting some different potting soil. So drop that in there, pick the vegetables you want, and you're good to go. With tomatoes, you're going to stick to something called determinant, and that's going to grow a vine that's usually somewhere between 4 to 6, excuse me, not a vine, but a plant that's 4 to 6 feet tall. And then that's going to have different blooms and different fruit on it. And that's how you would end up growing your tomatoes. And you'll find various ways of doing that with lots of plants. There's bush beans, there's determinate tomatoes. There are, certainly you could do root vegetables. That would be less efficient doing it with a pot, but you could do potatoes, things like that, tubers, whatever. What else? Certainly if you just wanted to do a flower farm, you could do all that in pots. But I know that's how we started, was way back when we were in a different state. Just we didn't even bother with soil at all. We just ended up putting it all in pots and then growing it out that way. And we were doing pepper plants and tomatoes. I think that was all we were doing in pots.
Peppers is another really good one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and goes in the pots. You can harvest just a little bit of it, but you can stretch it a long way with the seasoning and spices. So those are very good.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fun too because you look at it, how your family eats over the past year or whatever, or how you would like to eat for yourself or for your family, and you say, well, I'll just grow this. And so if you're hurting for salad greens, if you know that you use a lot of salad greens, are another one you can absolutely grow inside pots. But if you're hurting for that, or you're hurting for a special type of pepper, well, then you just grow your own. Oh, Whit's getting fancy on us.
Ooh.
Right.
What up? I'm busting out the poiple.
Very nice, very nice. So, what do you guys do for vegetables, Whit? Or growing in general? Do you grow any flowers or?
I'm doing my damnedest to kill a series of orchids right now. That is the main thing I'm doing on the back porch. And by the way, once again, can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, you
Yeah,
sound great to me.
Okay. I'm sorry. Like, I've just been still tangling details, so I apologize once again for shop talk. Let me see. To get serious, we were talking about tomatoes just in the past week on X, just a brief back and forth. But yeah, I could see doing basically what you just described on the back porch, where I think they would do admirably. We haven't had a habit of growing stuff at home, although we are now, Miss Whittaker and I, living sort of in the same southwest zone, regionally, kind of proximal to Grenfield here. And so we are similarly limited in terms of climate conditions. However, I must say, coming from the Pacific Northwest, um, where things are different, I've had better luck growing flowers and keeping things alive, even just houseplants, in this climate than I have in the greater Seattle area. And so, yeah, these are pretty auspicious conditions, all other things being equal. Um, I would like to do those hanging tomatoes, I think. Uh, I'm sure you know the ones I'm talking about, you guys. That seems like a good way to go. Space-wise, we're comparatively limited. We don't have land, Miss Whittaker and I, like Panda and Abbott do. So yeah, we've got all of this advice pertaining to pots is most applicable to our situation, and I'm guessing that other listeners, that'll be true for them as well. So this stuff's useful to hear. And as a side note, you were talking about the quality of Abbott's land, and Abbott, when I've seen you post pictures on X of what you're doing as far as growing things. I'm super impressed, man. It looks like scrubland to me that you are endeavoring to bring life out of. So, to a layman at least, that looks comparatively miraculous what you've got going on.
We definitely have the Lord helping us out here, because yeah, trying to get other stuff besides weeds growing out, and even the weeds, most of them don't. You'll have like a little rain and everything will spring up, and then next week it's just all dead. The sun just comes out and just cooks the land. So yeah, scrub land is probably the best way to put it.
Yeah. One thing I will say, especially in favor of pots, it's a lot of labor, but you basically have the perfect conditions. And the reason being is you get to set your conditions. So you get to control the absolute amount of water that they're carrying. And then you also get to control how much coldness and how much coldness, how, how much cold weather and warm weather they're dealing with. And that's simply a matter of bringing the pots in and outside of the house. And so whether it's seedlings and you start them in the house, or whether you start breaking them off in spring and getting them to where they can manage the outside temperatures, or if that just never occurs because temperatures are so extreme where you're at, and so then you end up bringing them in every night and taking them out in the morning.
Yeah, it's not quite that extreme where we're at, but yes, I already do that with a lot of the house plants we've got because
Mhm.
I'm sort of developing a green thumb somewhat, at least more so
Eh,
than in past past lives. And so yeah, I found that the in and out sequencing based on weather has been very useful.
Yeah, very good, very good. All right, so that's sort of, I mean, that's the long and short of it when it comes to homesteading with vegetables. You can go you can go as small or as large as you want. As you start getting into larger things, some of the resources I would look at. So Abbott already named one, in that the local feed store can, not necessarily will, but the local feed store can have different resources to get you into a bigger scale, or get you some of those seeds that you're looking for. Now, a lot of times that's limited, and they're going to limit themselves to what's going to be put out in the pastures for forage, things along that nature, or what's just a common plant, common vegetable that people will use locally. And so they'll know that Cherokee purple grows in their area, or they will know that they can grow oats at May rather than March, something like that. And so that's what you'll find a lot of times in the feed stores. One of the things you can do, you can go online, you can deal with Baker Creek, you could deal with Johnny Seed. What's another big one? Those are probably the two big ones, especially when you first start getting into it, that you'll end up dealing with. I will say, ultimately, I'm not a huge fan of dealing with either of those. I think they're very. Never mind. I almost spoke a little bit too harshly. Um, I think I think you can get a decent product out of those two websites. I also think you're going to pay for it, and ultimately, I don't know that you're going to wind up with a variety or a type that you like. And so I would probably find a different seed catalog, and maybe do something along that, and find your local vegetable growers and figure out who they use, cuz usually people will be using a local supplier, or they'll be using a regional supplier. One of the things that I would also look at, there is these guys, ENR Seed. I want to say they're out of Missouri. Excuse me. They're out of Monroe, Indiana. And so they do have a catalog. Do they have a website? I don't know. I've been using them from a catalog for so long at this point. I don't actually know if they have a website. Let's see. But anyways, it's ENR Seed. If you Google them, they will have a phone number. I don't know that they have a website. I believe it's all Amish run up in northern Indiana, and they have some very nice seed catalogs. They also have a greenhouse supply catalog. And so using them, you will have access to nearly the same amount that you would find at Baker Creek or at Johnny's. A lot of times it's going to be relatively cheaper, say roughly 20% cheaper if you're running through E&R. And then also they're going to have the time to talk to you on the phone and say, maybe I wouldn't do that, and give it to you a little bit more a little bit more straightforward, I think, than you might get it from the bigger seed companies, the hipster seed companies, if you will. That would be one thing. What else? Supply catalogs are good. Once you start getting into that, that's an issue of if you're doing some sort of production model, some sort of bigger production model. I guess even the pots are a production model. But once you move into E&R, then you'll have access also to seeing people that are using the big transplanters, the writing transplanters. They're called garden mulchers. What it is it takes you do have access to plastic if you want to use plastic. I would not use plastic, but it's a biodegradable polymer that you can get that you can use inside your garden. And so there's machines that you would hook to the back of your tractor, and that's either a tractor that you own or you can just straight up rent a tractor with a good 3-point hitch. If I was going to rent a tractor, I'd use one that's 75 horses is what I would rent. It's going to be expensive. That's probably going to be about $500 a day. But rent that, till it up with a good 3-point tiller, get 6 to 8 inches worth of tillage right there, and then you would run your mulcher through there. And then potentially, what's that?
Do you have any luck with taking your harvested crop? Sorry, maybe I'm going off on a tangent here, and we can revisit this later if I'm going off too
Saving
far.
seeds?
But getting producing new seeds from your crop at the end of the season.
Yes and no. So we've done that with sunflowers. We've done it with a few other ones. In general, I don't like to do it, and that's simply because of the day and age we live in. I find that the effort isn't worth it. I'll just go and buy new seeds because I have roughly three seed providers that I trust. E&R is the big one, and then there's a couple here or there that I'll end up dealing with. One of them is regional. Yeah. Yeah, let me actually pull it back. I've got two solid seed providers, and then I'll fill it out with maybe 3 or 4 other ones on a whim. But I have 2 big seed providers. One of them's regional, and then the other ones can be E&R, and E&R goes everywhere.
May
So
I ask
yeah,
a question here?
yep,
For us laymen out here, I don't hear much about seed suppliers in my
uh-huh.
little world. Like I'll hear about Monsanto and the hanky panky that goes on around that, because that's sort of macro news level stuff. But what you said something earlier about hipster seed suppliers, and I was curious to know what qualifies a supplier as being a hipster seed supplier.
Oh, just because you can walk into Barnes and Nobles and get their seed catalog. So Baker
Oh, is
Creek, I
that
think, is the
okay?
only one that, yeah,
All right, I got you.
it's not really they have transcended the industry, so to speak.
I'm with you.
So that's why I call them that, because everybody could get in there. What's another one? Seed Savers. Is it Seed Savers? I think that might be the one that's dealing with. Let's see, Seed Savers Exchange. These guys aren't. They're not terrible. They're a little bit more expensive. They're based out of Iowa. And then these guys, I mean, they are pretty good on heirloom seeds. But we've also had some work with E&R that it's just gone better. So, and that was early on enough in our gardening career, so to speak, that Seed Savers might be great. And we might have messed up the process at that point. But so I was looking up the other one. The 2 that I would use right now, if anybody was going to jump into it, let's see if I can share this somehow. Sorry, guys, we're live, and I'm
All
figuring
good, all
this out
good.
slowly but surely. Okay, so let's see.
That's all right. You shut
So
up, Panda. Fill the dead air, Abbott. Surely
this
you
one,
got something to.
this one
Yeah,
is
we got
out of, where is this? Elkton, Kentucky. If you call these guys, they will send you out a catalog as well. And so I want to say they do the entire U.S. And if they don't, they likely know somebody out on the West Coast that runs a similar operation to them, whether it's in California. Let's see. Again, it's another Amish run one, so I don't know. That might be California, Missouri. Well, Missouri is not that much different than Kentucky, but there's probably somewhere out west that you can find Amish guys. If these guys don't deliver, they very well might deliver. So we've used them. We use them through the mail, but again, we're more regional, east of the Mississippi, so we're closer to them. So they would be a pretty fair one. The Souter, they've got a whole catalog. E&R. Let me see if I can pull them up. In the meantime, actually, let me jump back in here, and I'll go to Seed Saver. Mm-hmm. All right, let's see. Or will I? Here we go. Okay, that should pull up Seed Saver. There we go. All right, so Seed Saver. Oh, it didn't drop the solder. All right, so this is Seed Saver's Exchange. They're another one we've used. Again, I wouldn't hesitate too much to use these guys. As I remember, their prices were pretty good. I struggled a little bit with some of their seeds, but again, that was early enough on that might have been us rather than the actual Seed Savers Exchange. And then last but not least, you guys fill the dead air. I'm going to try and track down E&R, see if I can get at least a phone number for everybody.
It's all you, Abbott. I'm trying to eat here. Oh, did Abbott drop? Gosh, now I need to bust out a soliloquy.
Did he? Yeah, it
All
looks like he
right.
did. Let's see.
Yeah. I'm sorry. You jibber jab a moment because I still have food in my mouth.
Abbott, do we have you?
Then I'll drop it.
came back. Sorry,
Okay, no
dropped
worries,
it
no worries.
time. But so usually with these big seed suppliers, is there kind of a minimum order that you end up doing with them, or like you get 50 pounds of a seed, or could you get here's 10
So
different
what'll happen when you, let me see if I have an actual seed catalog from E&R in here. No, this is a supply catalog. However, so like I'm talking about, I just opened a random page, and they've got fabric staples, fabric pegs. Over on the other page, you've got different ground covers that they're showing in there. Then all the way to the craziness, like I was talking about laying polymers. You've got spray tanks, whatever. And if nothing else, you can look through here and get ideas. They've got various fertilizers. What will happen is a lot of times they'll have everything from synthetic fertilizers to OMRI certified. What is that? Organic manufacturing. I can't remember what OMRI stands for, but anyway, it's the organic stuff. Let's see. So I don't have one of their seed catalogs in front of me, unfortunately. But yeah, what'll happen is you'll go in there and they will sell it usually by the packet, which is on average, we'll say somewhere between 30 to 100 seeds. And then a lot of times they'll sell by the ounce, quarter pound, up to usually pound to 5 pounds is the most you're going to get of a particular seed. That can vary by plant, but usually once we're getting into a pound, we're talking thousands of seeds. So did that answer the question?
That's what we're looking for. So
all right, let's see. So Abbott, talk a little bit about your operation or something. I'm going to look up, see if I can't find some contact info for E&R Seeds.
goal that we're looking
Hang on a
towards,
second.
our main.
Abbott, I got a specific
Oh,
question
even better.
pertaining to your operation. Um, just because I'm curious. You just got your chicken rig up, and you're at 100 plus or whatever, right?
Yes, we had 4 or 5 different little coops, and now we have one big one.
Yeah, cool. So I just wanted to know in brief how that's going for you, because let me see. When did you get that that switch was made like a month ago?
Yeah, we finished it just before things got real windy out here, so we're in April now. So yeah, probably end of March is when we were able to get everything up and running for all the birds.
Gotcha. And this is with the intention to sell them?
Yeah, so we sell them. My wife really wants to eventually open a country store. We're really far away from that, but what we found is that a lot of people like, we call them rainbow eggs, and it's just a bunch of different colors, and then we usually sell a dozen for 5. And
Yeah, yeah.
if we were able to sell all of them, we would be able to make a little bit of a profit. Right now, we break even or we lose a little bit because it is sure hard to push. We've got maybe 60 eggs a day. We eat a lot. We eat probably about 15 to 20, depending on the day. But we consume quite a bit,
Right.
and that saves us. But then we're also working on building up a customer base of different friends and coworkers and different people looking to get kind of more wild eggs. And so that's been our best monetization angle, I guess, of the homestead. And so we're trying to lean into that a little bit with trying to find different birds, exotic ones or something, like guinea fowls,
Yep.
geese. We've got these Amish
Hmm.
Chinese geese that do well. We have some goats that we're going to do some goat milk with, but just kind of experimenting and feeling out the area, because there's a few people, but there's a lot of retired folks, and there's not very many families or people looking to really work the land. And so we're trying to figure out, what niche can we fill that people are looking for.
Yeah, you
All
indicated
right.
that.
So,
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
no worries. Go ahead and finish that real quick, and then I'll tell you what I found right here.
Yeah, I just wanted to be clear. When you said that you are in the black with the chickens, you mean everything you're paying for to sustain them? Occasionally, you manage to break even or exceed that, just on the chickens?
The chickens are probably our only animal that we're able to do that with right now. Maybe
Yeah.
eventually, and it's not every month. It's kind of dependent on, do we have enough people who are interested in buying the eggs this month, or do we have somebody that is looking for a trade that is something we need, and then the value of that would be equivalent to, the 5 or 6 dozen eggs we give them, and
Right.
so on and so forth.
I got you.
All right. So what we have on here, this I have no idea what this cicada is, but anyway, I've double checked all the information on here that I have, and this is up here just so people can see it better than me reading it. But this information is correct, especially this phone number down here, 260-692-6827. Use that, call ENR. I actually don't know if the email is correct now that I said everything's correct. I don't know if the email is correct because I wasn't able to find that in the catalog, but the phone number is correct. Just call them, give them your address, and they will send you out a catalog. And then you can go through there, and they'll have different catalogs. They have their seed catalog and their supply catalog. I feel like they have a third one, and for the life of me, I can't remember what it is. But garden supply and seed are their two big ones.
May I ask a question now pertaining to that? Um, why why do they do it paper? They send you a paper catalog. I'm
They do.
curious as to why that would be advantageous for a group like this.
I have no idea. It's they're Amish.
Okay.
So
Oh well.
you
Okay.
go,
Well,
yeah.
That's probably it, right? I would guess.
say no
Well,
more, I
so
suppose. Except you're dealing with a
I would have
website
said
there.
that. I would have said
That's
that.
true.
Well,
Don't
so I don't
dog
know
or
what
dog.
this website is, the Cicada up here. I don't know what it is, but the information in regards to the address and the phone number is correct. The other part of that, though, is that Baker Creek will send out an actual catalog. It's a thick one. If you pick it up in Barnes and Nobles, I think it's somewhere between $10 to $15. And then I don't know if Johnny's sends out a catalog. I feel like they do, but I don't know for sure. And so let's just, while we're at it, let's see. Baker Creek. Oh, nearly popped up right there. Okay. Baker Creek. Okay. Yeah, so here's Baker Creek for you. And they still do a full catalog. Here you go. Yeah, so they've got heirloom seeds, and then they've got the whole seed catalog. And it's nice, it's gorgeous. It's, oh man, what am I getting into? You're gonna pay, and the germination for us hasn't always been great. And so it's fun when you're first starting out, or I would even say if you have a very much a micro garden and you want to just try the most extreme seeds out there, Baker Creek is fun. I mean, you can sit there for hours like it's the JCPenney or Sears catalog before Christmas and you're a kid. It's just all seeds. And it's everything from flowers. They might have a little bit of cover crop. Actual, full scale production isn't what they specialize in. I'm trying to remember. It's been probably close to a decade since I've used them. But it's fun. I mean, I'll give them that. So that, I think, pretty well wraps up the whole idea of planting and seeds and the vegetable produce side of it. We didn't get into trees or anything. Do you guys have any specific questions before we move on past the produce portion of all this?
No, I'm good.
All right. So the next portion then, if we're doing the whole homestead thing, is going to be livestock. And what does that actually mean? For me, livestock would start with poultry at the small end all the way up to cattle at the big end. You could do horses. I wouldn't necessarily do horses, even if I had the space for them.
Hay burners.
It's
Hay burners.
well, yeah, and the capital requirements for horses are different than the capital requirements for a tractor. So a tractor does cost more, but usually you're going to be able to finance a tractor. And this gets into all sorts of like, are you actually going to take on debt for any of this? But in general, tractors are a little bit easier to use than horses. You are going to have to run through it's going to take years to get really good with horses. I don't even think I'm really good with horses. I think just because I did it for several years, yeah, I've got an idea of what I'm doing out there, and could do it better than most. But I also think that most could get up to the level I'm doing it within a year to 2 years. It really is a sink or float
And so, what do
kind
you
of a
use
skill.
them for, or do you use them to manage your land most? Because I see some of that, and that's
Yeah. So
tractor. You breed them to
at this
sell.
point,
Go ahead.
At this point, at this point, the horses are just for fun, more or less. I'm hoping to run hay rides with them this year as we get more people on the farm. And so last year we started doing hay rides for the first season, and we did that exclusively with the tractor. I'm hoping this year to run a tractor as well as run the horses. And so the horses will be by reservation throughout the week, and then on the weekend it'll just be tractor. That's the idea. Yep. But having said that, if you want to go nuts and you want to, toss what I'm saying to the wind and say, hey, I want to jump in with horses. The way I would start doing that is one, I would start messing with horses, and I don't mean actually driving them or anything. I mean, I would get used to messing with horses. Sorry, guys, you can't even see me. Give me just a second. I'm reaching into my bag of goodies right now. So I would start messing with horses, whether that's mucking stalls or if you start housing a horse at a stable, just work with a horse. It doesn't have to be a draft. It doesn't have to be anything. It could even be a mule or a donkey. I wouldn't personally. It could be. Let me walk that back, though. I would work with horses, and then I would work with donkeys, and then way down here, I would work with mules. Now, there's a bunch of caveats, but if you have no experience with any of this, that's the gist of it. I would not work with mules. Because there's too much to learn between the differences of draft type horses, hot blooded horses, cool blooded horses, light horses, heavy horses, and all that. Learning all of that, and then learning about mules, and then dealing with just stay away from mules to begin with, especially if you have no experience with it. Any of this. Having said that, like you can come out and just do stuff. I didn't own a horse till I was in my 30s. I owned some mules in my late 20s. And so I mean you can just do things, but I would recommend not starting with mules. I would recommend just doing it with horses. But even then, I don't know. Actually, never mind. We're talking about the homestead thing. Yeah, if you want horses, there's ways to do it. I just really think your expectations need to be grounded, need to be appropriate. If you go out and you get 2 fjords or 2 halflingers and expect them to run a 10 plus acre farm, that's not fair to them. It's not fair to yourselves. You're going to get really frustrated expecting it, especially if you go and get a bomb proof team that's 12, 13, 14 years old. That's not enough for anything over 10 acres. And frankly, 10 acres is pushing it depending on what it is you want them to do. So that's how it goes with horses. Also with horses, generally, you're going to pay up front. I would stay away from the auctions. If you're going to do horses, I would go with private sales, at least initially, until you know what you're doing. I've had good luck at auctions. I've also had terrible luck at auctions. And so that's a little bit of it is a cultural thing, but you can't make yourself safe for everything. If you're going to do it though, you have to get this book. It's called The Horse-Powered Farm. It's by a fellow named Stephen Leslie. This is the book you need. He has a second book, which is very helpful. Frankly, I'd get both of them if you have the opportunity. Again, it's Stephen Leslie. It's The Horse-Powered Farm. I would get both the books if you're able to. If you can only get one, get The Horse-Powered Farm. But it's good. It's good just to get your head wrapped around it. It's good for when you have actual reference questions. You can see there's dirt on the back of this. There's from muddy fingerprints and whatever. Because I came in here and I said, doggone it, I'm struggling with such and such issue. And usually I could find an answer between that and the second volume. And it's all, there's a little bit of vet information. There's a little bit of holistic horse care. But overall, it's focused on working, how to use the implements, how to put on your harnesses. If you knew nothing about horses and said you wanted to start horse farming, you could get there on the theory side with just Stephen Leslie's stuff.
You said that you had a terrible experience at a horse auction before. What, I don't know. Do you have any excellent stories in that vein related to terrible experiences?
The worst horse I've ever owned. So the worst equines I ever owned were mules that I bought private sale. The worst full size horse I ever owned was bought private sale, and the worst miniature horse I ever had was bought at auction. And in some ways, that miniature horse put both the mules and the full size horse to shame. Just that, they, there's a story. Okay, I'll do my best. I'll do my best to describe it, but without actually you guys seeing it, I don't know how it's going to come off looking. So this little horse I have, and he's at that point you don't even measure by hands. I mean, he's maybe 36 inches at the withers, and he's just a turd out in the field. So I'm working with him for like 2.5 weeks at this point. I'm like, golly, this guy is just he is not feeling it. So I'm going to get him sold. I know that he's saddle broke ish because that's how I bought him at auction. He had a saddle on. I don't know if they doped him. I don't know what the issue was. But I am chasing him up and down the fields. He's putting pressure on my fences, and he's busted out of my fences a couple times. I'm like, this guy's got to go. So I get him in a catch pen in a corral that I've got, and I get the saddle on him, and as soon as I drop the saddle on him and cinch it up, he takes off around the corral, and he goes spinning around the corral a couple times, and then the second time he runs right into me, just head first runs into me. Like, what the world? Little horse again. He's only like 36 at the withers, and that's the top of the shoulders. So long story short, he's running into me, and I end up we just wound up in a wrestling match, which is not something you want to do with horses. And I get him pinned up in the ground, and I told the gal, I said, well, that's it, I'm going to shoot him. But I didn't. I ended up selling him. I think I had bought him. Well, I think I had bought him for 250 ish, and I sold him for $50. I was like, and I told the person that bought him, I said, this is exactly what happened. And so they were aware of it. I never want to sell an unsafe animal, but that's probably the craziest story I have with him. Now the other ones, the mules and the horses, they're more dangerous because they're bigger, but thank God they weren't like him in actions. The mules, well, okay, so there's something called a sickle bar mower. Give me a second. Let's see.
Now, remind me, Abbott, do you have horses? I don't think I recall hearing much about them, if you do.
I've not. We've had
Gotcha.
like friends and family that have had horses, but we have not had. All of our stuff has been kind of medium small. So I think our biggest was like a boar goat. And those are like big goats, but that's kind of our limits. We've looked at getting something a little bit bigger, but we don't have a whole ton of land to plow with them. And like we could ride them. The kids are still little, and so I think maybe as they get a little older, we might get a pony or something that one of them could ride on, and that would be our use for it. I really like Panda's idea of going into the community and doing horse rides there, hay rides. Pulling that, I think that's a good use for them. For me, for us out here, it's hard to find a good use for the horse, especially with the tractors. The dirt is really hard. We get this stuff called caliche, which is like Indian clay is what they call it, and it's
Yep.
only like put down, sometimes less, sometimes 6 inches, and that stuff is really hard to break through without some heavy equipment. So
Yeah, well, and it is sort of this idea that even excluding all the European stuff, the German movement and all of that stuff that went on north of the Ohio, um, it was all east of the Mississippi. And so once you get out to that American Southwest, outside of exploration and war, so to speak, there, or I guess martial reasons, there was really no use for the horse. Not like you would see even the Pacific South, the Pacific Northwest, and Idaho, and for the life of me, I can't talk. Idaho and some of the Dakotas, Montana, you would still find sometimes the heavy drafts working up there, certainly in California. But yeah, that area in particular, the American Southwest, outside again of martial reasons and I guess you would say exploration or something, there was no real use for the horses out there. Well, transportation, but yeah. So this is what I have on the screen right here is something called a sickle bar mower, and they have them now where they're connected to three point hitches on your average tractor. This the ones that I have pulled up, they're horse drawn, and so they've got a big tongue in between them, and that'll sit in between your team. The mules nearly killed me, but the reason that happened is because I had them out on and this is one thing. So these books like this horse powered farm and stuff. Yeah. Leslie writes about taking it slow, taking it easy and working your animals up. A lot of that too, though, is just hands-on experience where you're going to have to get there. You're going to have to make your mistakes. And when you don't have mentors and all that, the mistakes get more dangerous. So you're kind of winging it. And so that's what happened with these mules. I put them on a sickle bar way too early. And I learned that after this. But I put them on, and as soon as I engaged it, they bolted. And there's something called a pitman, which is a part on it that they broke when they bolted. And it was like, oh, dadgummit. I was able to disengage the mower and to get them spun around to a certain area. And I was taking them back to their training corral. And unfortunately, as I got about 10 feet up to their training corral, they were like, okay, we're going into the corral. And they did not care that they were still hooked up to the mower. So even though the blade itself was disengaged, the mower wasn't working. What happens is that the sickle bar is still laying out there on the ground. It's still completely extended like it's supposed to be mowing. These mules take off to go into the corral. Thankfully, I guess, I had planted the corral posts deep enough that it just snapped the sickle bar right off. And so it's an old steel wheeled one that I'm riding in. And so now it's not just the pitman, the whole mower this is a catastrophic loss. But the bigger issue is that these mules have bolted into the corral and they're just spinning this mower around as I'm riding on top of it. And it's, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? What I should have done, the safest thing is I probably should just cross my arms and fallen straight backwards. I didn't think about that in the moment. And so I halfway slipped and fell in between the seat and the left side wheel. And again, I was using steel wheels. Thankfully, I did not get caught up in it. But or I should say, I did not wind up under the wheel, and my leg didn't get caught in it, but it got ground up a little bit. Was carrying a big black bruise basically down the left side of my body, under my hip, my left leg, for the next few weeks. It was pretty bad, but that was that. That was the scariest event I had with equines. I've had some other issues, but that was definitely the scariest, the one that could have gone wrong the worst, and thankfully didn't. But yeah, after that, I eventually sold the mules, because mules are also the only ones I've ever had purposely roll underneath me when I was riding them. But
that's wild. How do you fall when they do that? Like
when you're on the mower or when they roll?
No, the mules. You mentioned you were contemplating post facto how you ought to have fallen. I was just wondering, with the mules when they buck under you, or rather roll.
Okay,
like
yeah.
What's the
so when you're riding
tried
them,
and true method there?
Try to jump off as quick as before they hit the ground. Now I had a white Arabian one time, and I would ride him up. Oh, he was awesome. And so he and I went down one time, and the only thing I can figure out is that we were riding early. There was dew on the grass, and we took off so fast that when he went to turn, his hooves just went out from under. And so we both, thankfully, however it happened, he did land on me, but he didn't land hard. I'm trying to figure out how to describe it. Anyway, he didn't land hard. And so we both got up and we're looking at each other like, oh, okay, whatever. We went back to riding that morning. Because it is also kind of that thing. There's almost like when you're in the batter's box, if you clinch up because you're convinced you're going to get hit, sometimes it hurts more. Does that make sense? Your
That
muscles
makes sense.
tighten.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this one with the Arabian just came out of nowhere. And so we were both like, oh, whatever. Whereas with the mule, she changed her gait and I knew it was coming. Or excuse me, I expected it to start coming because she started running all discombobulated. Like, there's no way. I've never had a horse do that under me. I've had horses buck and I've had horses rear. I've never had them purposely fall underneath me. And so I was like, there's no way that, oh yeah, she rolled. And yeah, it was just thankfully I was able to hop off of her before she hit. Honestly, she was a light horse too. She wouldn't have hit that hard, but it still would have been obnoxious. So
Yeah, what I'm imagining is how easy it would be to bust an ankle under those conditions, you know? Um,
maybe. Yeah.
is that uncommon? Because it seems to me if an equine creature goes sideways under you, that would be most likely to happen. But again, I'm I'm
You
not
mean
wise
like
to these things.
if your foot's in the stirrups?
Well, yeah,
I don't
at
know.
the horse's side, one way or another.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think, like, now that you're saying it, it's interesting because I don't think I've known people that have busted hips. I've known people that have busted legs. I've known, there's always that idea that if you get bucked off or you fall off or whatever, you could hit your head something. But the ankle, now that you mention it, because it does seem like I don't know that I've ever known anybody to have hurt their ankle specifically. I don't know.
Anyway, thanks for satisfying my curiosity on that point.
Yeah, I mean it's an interesting question just because I can't draw it up. Um, but yeah, horses are fun, and I keep saying, "Oh, I don't recommend it," but I guess if it's your homestead, man, like, do whatever you want. Buy 8 horses if you want to. But that, I think that would probably be the biggest thing, is just have an honest expectation of the work that you can get out of them. That would be my big thing with horses. They're fun. If you could do it, go ahead and do it, man. If you've got the time and you've got the money, absolutely do horses. It's a great time. The other fun thing about the machinery that you'll use with horses is it's very simple. The concept to actual operations is simple, and then the way the machine is put together is often very simple. You can disassemble, grease, or get into oil, or replace the bolts and the pieces and parts you need. And then outside of the actual gearing, you can fabricate nearly everything on horse-drawn equipment. It's not always the best way to do it. I mean, on a sickle bar mower, yeah, just see if you can't get some blades for a 3-point sickle bar mower, and then whether you're riveting those or doing something, you can sort of makeshift those. Maybe not actual fabricate, but then on other equipment, you can fabricate a lot if you're willing to put in the elbow grease. And you can also just straight up make your own thing. There's a couple called the Nordells out in Pennsylvania who do a lot with horses, and they would take different old horse-drawn machinery and when I say fabricate, they would make entirely new machines and just test them out and see if they thought they were worthwhile, whether it was to drag the topsoil in a garden or to catch different plants or bring them up different potato plows, whatever. You could do a lot with horses and a little bit of ingenuity. But that's where I would go on horses. One thing too, because of the way our operations are at this point. So now we'll move into a little bit more with livestock, and we'll get away from the tractor question because in general, I'm gonna say this. So there's guys in their 50s and 60s that have done well for themselves, lived a good life, and they can jump in and get a hold of a skid steer, get a hold of an 80 horsepower tractor. They can do things. They have the money to do that. But for guys in their 20s, 30s, the tractor and the skid steer can be difficult to get a hold of. Can be very difficult, and frankly, might not make sense depending on the size of your operations. So that was a really long way of saying I'm not going to talk too much about the tractors tonight. That's an issue in and of itself. You can contact me on X, and I'll talk about tractors. But when it comes to livestock, this book, I would track this book down, and we're going to get into a little bit with production here in just a second. But it's called Heritage Breeds. This is from the Livestock Conservancy. And you see that down here at the bottom. You can find these guys online, and that's going to have all the updated information of their breed listings and whatnot. But the idea with them is that they keep track of American breeds. They keep track of international breeds that are inside of the U.S. It is a U.S. based, maybe they're UK. Now that I said that, I might be wrong. Yeah, okay. So they're based out of the U.S. Let me pull them up on here. The Livestock Conservancy. And these guys are tracking various breeds and how many still exist and how they're being used. This is a great site. Jump up here into Heritage Breeds. It's going to tell you poultry, livestock. It's going to give you different products, different uses for the animals. Now, livestock is going to be your horses, your cattle, your goats, your sheep. What else? Oh, yeah, they got pigs, rabbits, donkeys. So you can find everything here. What I would say, by and large, that it's a lot of fun. And again, we're talking about homestead, not production. And I really want to stress that when you're on the Livestock Conservancy, a lot of what they're focused on are the breeds for themselves. What you'll find out once you get into a production model is that a lot of these animals are not great for production. The base I have, let me jump back into that site. The base I have for my sheep is something called a Shetland sheep. And I do believe it's on their list of sheep breeds. Let's see, breeds imported. Okay. So Shetland sheep. These guys are great on a homestead and only a homestead. What happens is you get them and they take 2 years to reach full weight. And that full weight is somewhere between, if it's a really heavy ram, I mean a really heavy ram, you're looking somewhere between 90 to 100 pounds, 90 to 110 pounds. But then usually you're going to be smaller than that. Oh, here you go. I finally see it on here. So they're saying ewes at 75 to 100. Yeah, good luck getting a 100-pound ewe. And then the rams, they're saying up to 120. Yeah, maybe. That's a big Shetland ram. Then it takes them 2 years to get up there. They throw almost exclusively singles. You'll get some twins in there. They also only breed once a year. So a lot of production ones, guys will end up pulling 3 lambings over the course of 2 years. No, you're getting 2 lambings, and they're called closed breeders. And in general, you're not really going to have lambs from them. if you pull a 60-pound lamb, and for our intents and purposes right now, we're going to say lambs are under a year old. So everything with these guys is going to be a yearling lamb, which is under 2 years old, unless you want to pull something at 35, 40 pounds. But at that point, if you're paying somewhere between 140 to $200 for the processor, it's not remotely worth it from a production standpoint. If you're going to butcher it yourself and throw it in the freezer, well, then that's fine. Homesteads have a lot of leeway. If that's what makes sense to you, go for it. They will survive on anything. You don't have a whole lot of issues with hoof rot or any major health problems for the most part, but they are just tiny sheep. And that's frankly why I'm trying to breed most of it out of the flock that I have right now. They're good for homesteads, I suppose. There's still other ones that there's ones that I would prefer over this. The Cheviot would be one of them. Frankly, if you're willing to do a fair bit of graining, even your Hampshires and your Suffolks, your sort of club breeds, I would probably do over the Shetland at this point. But if you just want to put them out there and let them go, then yeah, the Shetland will be fine. But that does get into bigger questions too. If you're going to jump into livestock, what should you do? Poultry is a great way to do it. Poultry is interesting though, in that you're going to need feed for your poultry. With some sheep breeds, with goats, I guess, but goats are their own issue as well. I don't like goats. I'll just throw that out there. I don't like goats at all. Now, I haven't messed too much with dairy goats. That might be a different issue. But, well, actually, now that I say that, I haven't really messed with meat goats like your boar goats either. I've always been messing with these stupid tourist goats because people love to play with goats. And I hate goats, but people legitimately love playing with goats. Yeah. So goats, sheep, there's special kinds of hogs that you could do. Those would probably be the three easiest. Now, cattle are really easy, frankly, to take care of, but the issue with cattle is the infrastructure that's needed.
Yeah,
And so, especially, what's that?
definitely the infrastructure on the cattle and just having the land and the pastures to graze
Yeah.
them and the water, the wells.
And that's the big issue with cattle, is just that they're so big that they require certain things. And if you haven't messed with any livestock or been around animals, I wouldn't start with cattle. And it's not even because cattle are hard to manage or take care of. It's just that they're so big, and you need to get used to being around an animal that size. And then you also do need to have the proper infrastructure, because even though I'm saying the Shetlands don't get sick and all that, yeah, sometimes there's going to be a cow that has a calf that's stuck, or there is just a crazy week of weather. If you're getting ice storms in Texas, then you very well might want to have some of your calving mothers put up or whatever. And so if you don't have access to gates and pens that can hold these big pieces of livestock, well, then that's an issue. What you guys have done a lot of, oh, I'm sorry. And so that's the other part. So Abbott, you guys have done a lot of birds, yeah? A lot of poultry?
Yes, that's been our main thing is the turkeys and the mostly chickens. In my experience from working with the birds, it is just so hard to beat chickens on
Yeah.
the meat production, especially looking at like a Cornish cross breed,
Mm-hmm.
the egg laying capabilities, and they're just tough. Well, you'll raise we'll get turkey poults, and we get maybe half the eggs hatch, and then half of those survive, even with like the perfect care. Whereas chickens, I've been able to get like an 80% hatch rate, and then of those, you're only losing like 10% of them, and
Yeah.
they're really efficient. They can eat pretty much anything. You can give them like you're saying you are gonna have to come up with some kind of grain or
Yeah.
feed to
That's
give them.
that's really the only. I wouldn't say it's a bad thing, but it is something going into it that you have to know that potentially now you guys can't do this down in the Southwest, but potentially depending on where you're at in the US, you can just put sheep and goats, certain kind of hogs and cattle, you can just put them out there and let them go at it. With chickens and with most hogs, you're going to have a grain source, and you're going to have to be willing to go and do that weekly or monthly, or I mean maybe there's delivery, right? But you're going to have to be able to know how to provide that grain. But I think Abbott did hit a lot of it. Chickens, if you have the right setup and you're willing to put the work into it, I do think chickens are a good one to start with, or maybe to supplement after you've had grass based breeds for a minute. Jump into some poultry.
And
Yep.
those,
Now,
these guys being more part of your family. You've got your, especially if you're doing a small homestead and you've got, one or two lambs, or, you've got a mini, we've known people with mini donkeys, and like not all that's productive, right? I think it's better to try to stay with productive breeds. But those guys, and they'll live for quite a bit longer. Chickens, they'll tolerate you, and they might even be your friend. But those, they die so quickly, and you go through them. You don't really have as much of a chance to establish a bond with poultry and birds like you do with a lot of the hoofed mammals.
now, Cornish crosses are production. Not even breed. Let's say variety, because they've got different breeds within it. Their production variety is that roughly 8 week period? Because we've never done meat chickens.
Yeah, and they're, in my opinion, it's the only kind of meat chicken really worth doing.
Okay.
Because they're just so much bigger, and they're done 8 or 9
Yeah.
weeks, and they're ready to go. And and if you keep them longer, and they'll die. So you've got to, like,
Yeah.
their hearts don't keep up with the muscle and bone growth, and like the bones don't grow fast enough so they can break legs. Like I've had a couple where I kept them for 10 weeks and they couldn't walk anymore, and I was like, oh, I needed to harvest you sooner. And so they're definitely a weird, and that's everybody. Whenever you go to the store, it's all Cornish cross, the roastery chickens and the chicken breast, and they are definitely weird chickens as far as
Yeah.
comparing them with the growth and the rate and the lifespan of regular birds.
Mhm. Now, I will say too, and this gets into sort of the ethics of it and the spirit of it, and why you're doing certain things. But we were talking about potted plants earlier. One of the things that you can do, sort of in line with the potted plants idea, is that you can run. Um, Frankly, you can run rabbits and you can run chickens and what you can run birds and you can run rabbits where they never leave the crate, never leave the cage. You can do this. I'm not going to say that you can do it humanely, but you can do it in such a way that the quality of the animal itself and of the carcass is not uh, is not ruined. You could do it poorly. You can raise pigs poorly. You can raise rabbits, chickens, any of them in a crate. You can raise it poorly to where the carcass is affected. Again, I'm not getting into the ethics of it right now. I don't really like that system, but I'm also blessed to not have to employ that system. So it is something that you are very capable of doing, whether it's inside a garage or on the back patio or whatever. You can run both poultry, rabbits, but I feel like there's more that I'm missing. But those are the two big ones that you could run in some sort of a crate setup without um, without needing to put them out.
This is something I didn't expect to come up in this stream. The ethical side of all of this. Um, is that something you have to think much about, Abbott, with what you do?
With us, not really, because we're not, like Panda was talking about with the homestead. Well, we did have rabbits for a little bit, and the dogs would try to hunt them down. And so eventually, I had to restrict them to the crates, and we felt bad for them. We ended up giving them away. The ones that survived, we had a couple get out and get eaten. So it's like, but if you were running a business with these kind of guys and it was your livelihood, it's very hard with things like those animals to be profitable and not go into some kind of crate or management system. From the people I've known that have been able to do that.
Yeah, well, and that's basically, it would seem to me that, especially where you're living, that a lot of this would basically come down to dry lots and where everything is being brought in, all even the water to a great deal, the water, the grains, the various inputs that the animals are using. And so at that point, it even gets down to, if I let my animals roam, then they're going to need higher calories and more protein. And so then it does get into what is the way of maximizing flesh on individual units, which is not, again, I want to be careful on this, it's not a way that I've had to think, and I count that as a blessing.
Well said. Well said.
Didn't I
Yeah.
see you in the past 2 weeks, Abbott, post something to the effect of it was it was angled in the direction of the however nice you are to animals on the whole is reflective of your attitude toward God and the greater cosmic order. Didn't I see you posting about that in the past couple of weeks?
I think so. I think I had somebody had a good post, and I either quoted it or posted about it. But yeah, I mean, if you think of God being, so much higher and above us, right? As being adopted into His family and Him treating us as His, how much
Right.
so should we try to do our best for the animals, the plants, the things in our care, right? Even though I I I, I hesitate to use the word higher being or something, right? But
That's
there's
fine.
definitely
I'm
a
I'm comfortable with
God is
that.
gonna God is gonna prioritize the life of like a human right over the sparrow, but He sees the sparrow too, and so we should try to. We don't have to go overboard, right? And do each animal needs $30,000 surgeries or whatever to give them another year of life, but we should make sure that they're taken care of the best we can. Is kind of my philosophy. And I think if we were able to do that with more of the factory farming, put more effort into that and into maybe, and I think, in my opinion, the best way is to involve people in the manufacture of their own food as much as possible. Because if you're the one who's collecting the eggs every day, if you're the one taking, the pig to the butcher or whatever you're able to do in your small suburb or even city, right? If you're growing potatoes, you have a connection to the earth and to nature that you're going to lose if you're just going to Walmart every day and you're just buying that hunk of that steak, right? If you actually understand and you worked with the animals, not only will you have greater respect and connection to nature, but you'll also be able to appreciate the sacrifice that goes into keeping us alive every day and have greater care for them. So that's kind of my outlook on it.
Right. I respect that attitude for sure.
Yeah. This, Saint Francis was very big on that, and I think, frankly, that's a natural outgrowth of what we see in the Genesis creation story. These
Great.
at the absolute worst and at the least, these are resources that we are supposed to steward well. And so I think that denies a lot of silliness in regards to animals. And yeah, full disclosure, I'm more aware of how I say these things these days. One of the best things you could do, whether you're doing a hobby farm or all the way up to production, like I'm involved in now, uh, don't don't just come out, especially when you have no experience with anything, and be a jerk to all the local farmers that are doing it in what has become the conventional way. Whether you're
Yeah.
upset that they're using steroids, whether you're upset that they're graining their animals or they're running a dry lot or whatever, um, just realize and be wise about it that there's probably still things that you can learn from them. And even if you're not going to do it that way, that's fine. Just take in what good you can from them rather than coming out and beating your drum when frankly from if you're actually again trying to get past the homestead and get into production and actual operational farm, man, I've seen a lot of people drop in the first 5 years, and that's the same with any business. And so maybe don't go trying to piss on these guys and tell them how wrong they're doing when you haven't done anything yourself at this point. um, Having said
Yeah,
that,
good point. When
go.
you look at when you interact with anybody that has done, we have a lot of pecan farmers out here, and you
Mhm.
just look at what the price swings and the struggle to keep everything afloat, and like especially the individual non-corporate
Yeah.
farms, you know, um, and they're doing their very best. So I've got a lot of respect for those folks, and not as much for the big old corporate things, but people got to be
Right.
fed, and it's an ugly business of keeping meat on everybody's table. So there's a certain amount of this is the fallen world we live in, and some of this we have to put up with. We can still strive, right? Especially in our own. That's why I think homesteading is such a great opportunity for people, because it gives you, not only does it give you that knowledge, but it gives you that opportunity to work towards being self-sufficient and contribute, rather than just being a consumer that is just almost wasting resources, right?
Right. Yep. 100%. Yeah. The long and short of it is I despise factory farms. I despise like you talked about the actual commercial operations, and I don't mean commercial as in your local farmer, but
Like
the
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 Tyson
companies and
chicken.
conglomerates. So, all right. With that being said, I want to dig in a little bit more on resources. One of the things that we have found very valuable out here is called, it's just your standard Autobahn Society, and they've got a bunch of these field manuals. This one is on North American wildflowers. And so it'll come in here, it'll give you your description. You also have all your pictures in different areas. This one it's surprising how much use you will get out of this depending on what part of the US you're in. They have that one. Now, what's the other one I grabbed? I've got like 6 of them out there. But this one is going to be on North American trees. And so, whether you're talking about deciduous or coniferous, jump in here, same idea. You've got everything in here. You've got the trunks and the bark patterns. You've got the leaves themselves, and they're going to also break them down by region. You'll get your various descriptions. The Autobahn stuff is top notch. There's no fluff to it. There's no extra. It's not that blog post. The somebody going and looking for sugar cookies and they've got to read about 5 different family stories just to get the recipe. It's not that at all. This is just right into descriptions, facts, and how to use it. And so that's a good one. Another one. Now, this is the blog post. This is the one that's stories, and it's kind of sort of reference, but it's also you go through here and it's almost like a reader's digest, some sort of compendium, and that is the Foxfire books. Have you messed with these at all, either of you guys?
I have not. I've got to check these out.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I believe you've brought them up before, but anyway, sell
So
them to us.
these guys gained notoriety. I think they were first published in the 70s, maybe it was the 80s, but they sort of in the back to the land, the hippie movement. Let's see if this gives us an actual. Okay, so yeah, the first the first copyright was 1975, and I want to say there's 12. There might be 14 of these. Foxfire,
Hey,
and
yeah,
they
hang
come
on, hang
through.
on. Can I, Panda? I got to tell you,
Mhm.
your when you present this stuff, it looks
Yeah.
to me like it's reading backwards. Um,
Oh yeah, that's
okay, okay. I just wanted to be clear that you understood that.
yeah.
All right.
Yeah, that's the nature of cameras,
Yeah, yeah, sure.
And I'm holding it, you um
Pardon me. Do go on.
no, you're good. You're good. So anyway, this was back to the land, late hippie movement where it started breaking off into these different subsections and different initiatives, and so it wasn't necessarily as much anti-war or even post-war as much as it was how now do we live a good life. That's sort of what this came out of. And in any given volume, again, I think there's somewhere between 12 to 14 volumes. I don't have them all yet. I think I'm up to maybe 11 at this point. You'll go through it, and it's just a smattering of stories and resources for you. So in this one, they talk about gourd banjos and songbows, wooden locks, shoemaking, toys and games. Uncle John was in the crib stilling corn. What else do we have? I did the best I could with the brain nature gave me. Memories of the American chestnut. This is the blog post, the stories, and it's coming out of Appalachia, and you can use some of it. You can be inspired by others of it. You might find after the first volume or two that this isn't my thing, and just totally skip it. It is one of those series of books that you kind of have to feel out and see is this me or is this something that I'm just going to stay away from, because it's not a reference. It's merely a picture into the past that sometimes has information that you can use and find valuable. So the
I'm
exact
sorry. So it's largely composed of anecdotes. Is that the basic idea?
ish it is anecdotes, but it's, let's say, essays. So it might be the story overall is anecdotal, but it could go on for 30 pages potentially. And so
I gotcha.
you're jumping in there and just seeing if there's anything valuable. If you like the spirit of it, you just keep working through it as a unique piece of American culture. But then there are times where you can pull useful stuff out of it for raising chickens, or listening to how they interacted with the sheep back in the day, or messing with animal pelts, or things that they did when they were having a dry year, in regards to their plants. This year was very dry, and so we did XYZ, something along that. But it's definitely not a straight up reference. What else do I have? Oh, cycling back, I will say, on the plants, the gold standard, or at least the standard that everyone knows of, is a fellow by the name of Elliot Coleman, and he's going to have. Let's see. He wrote the book that everybody's going to reference and tell you to check out this one first, and I think that is fair. I'm not going to sit here and say that, oh, it's the best book ever or anything like that. But what I will say is that it gets you started, and at the very least, when you jump into this book, you'll understand what everybody else is talking about. So let me actually get that screen shared up here again. And this is, come on, pop up screen. There we go. The New Organic Grower. So this one was published originally back in, 1988. And so because this is the 30th anniversary, published in 2018. And so this is the guy that everyone knows about. And frankly, it's not that, oh, it's the best and you should never look at anything else, but this is a great place to start. Get your feet up under you in handling vegetables and the production of things and what it is you're trying to accomplish. Let's see. Okay. So that is Coleman. What else? What else? Another one. Reaching my bag of goodies. When you're doing all of it, just pick up any little books you find, especially if you can get them cheap. Get them at garage sales, get them at library book sales, and just, go through it. A lot of this stuff I would not tell you treat this stuff as reference and be able to quote this from back to front. Because frankly, there's different styles of butchering, or you might find that the way he described it in here is not the way that you want to do it after you've done 10 sheep or 4 does or whatever. You might find ways that you prefer to do it. And so between YouTube, between the books, it is frustrating. Let's go back to working horses. It's frustrating that you can't just walk out and run into people that have trained horses. You can with the Amish. That's a little bit different. Frankly, you just got to get over your nerves and talk to them. But that's assuming that there's an Amish community that's anywhere close to you. And some Amish communities are more willing to talk than others, more willing to interact with quote unquote English than other ones. But whether it is rug making, and there's a particular style of rugs, forgive me, that I'm thinking of. I can't remember if it's coil rugs or what it's called. But whether it's rug making, whether it is running horses and working heavy horses, whether it is planting, whether it is taking care of poultry, there are a lot of things where the skills they're no longer ubiquitous. And so you will run into a lot of garbage and a lot of things that don't work and a lot of things that are made to look cheap and easy on YouTube and on different things that Tractor Supply sells. And that's okay, because at least it gave you a jumping off point, and you can mess with this stuff and say, oh, I don't like that. And now you have the experience. On so many of these books, I don't expect you to read them from back to front. I just want you to jump into them, be like, okay, I'm going to try this. Drop the book halfway and just go for it. Having said that, so Elliot Coleman's going to be the big one on vegetables. Start it, read his stuff, and use that as a launch pad for different YouTubers, different blog writers, different publication houses. On livestock, Abbott, have you done anything by Salatin?
I have not read Salatin.
Okay. So the big one is Salatin. After Salatin, Greg Judy. I think his star might be fading a little bit, not because he did anything wrong, but just I don't know that, his he had the notoriety or the kinetic energy that Salatin had. And there's some other guys that are coming up and have some good information. The livestock management one, Salatin is the big one. He does have a product out there that, let me pull this up. It's called the Salatin Semester. I don't know if it's still being published. When it came out, I have it on DVD, and so that tells you it's been out for a minute. Let's see. Can you still get a hold of it? Okay. It looks like. Oh. This is interesting. Okay, so this is brand new. It looks like they have now. I don't think they're doing the Salatin semester anymore, but it looks like they have a web platform. I'm sorry, guys. Let me pull this up in the stream. Okay. So this is Salatin. This is Polyface Farms. I will say the biggest problem with Salatin is not Salatin himself, it's his followers. A lot of people will see what he does and they will say that's how it's supposed to be done. And frankly, I don't think Salatin would even say that most of the time. So this one is, or at least they're marketing it as a complete course library with 10 individual courses, over 190 detailed lessons, and 44 hours of video instruction. So it looks like they're doing this online platform now rather than the Salatin semester, which is both good and bad. And I guess you jump in here, you unlock the different courses. They have it on pastured broilers, pastured pigs, laying hens. Carbonaceous diaper it's what he calls his manure management system and the vitality that he tries to throw back into the soil come spring. And so provide comfortable winter housing for your animals while producing your own fertilizer. Then he jumps into cattle grazing, salad bar beef, farm direct marketing, poultry and predators, and pastured rabbits. So let me double check on price real quick. Okay, oof. Salatin semester was not that expensive, but it also doesn't have as much information. It has, I think this was 10 courses. Roughly 3 of these courses is what was included in the Salatin semester. It was broilers, had some information on pigs. Some of this other stuff was hit tangentially. Yeah, $1,000 is rich just because $1,000 is a lot of money. There are, if it's the same quality of other stuff that I've used from him, there are worse ways to spend that $1,000. You're going to have to go in there with a willingness to take what he says, though, and find a way to apply that. Even if it's completely different than what he's doing, at least to soak in what he's saying for a minute and filter it as best you can. That's how I would probably say that. $1,000. If you are in your 50s and your homestead is just for fun and you've got money to burn, go for it. If you are in your 20s and you are going for broke and you want to do a production model, go for it. If you are in between on age and on finances, there's honestly a lot of other things I would do before I jumped into that $1,000. That would be my thoughts. Frankly, Salatin himself has other resources that you can get on Amazon and maybe even your local bookstore that I would choose before jumping into the particular website.
I'd like to ask Abbott, are there any books that aided you when you were getting off the grounds? Like where came the impetus to do what you're doing, and where came the information?
Well, our story is probably a little bit different, and we're kind of a weird homestead because we are kind of more. It's most like a lot of it's for the kids, be able to get them involved, and then some of it is kind of this prepping as we saw our childhood home city kind of descend into crime and go crazy, and then want to get into the rural areas and say, well, if such and such happens here, what could we do if the power grid goes down or this happens? What could we do to be able to continue to maintain the family and keep everybody going? So we are definitely kind of this weird third party outlier, and it's probably this new. I think it's kind of a new thing that people are getting a little bit shocked and they're changing, because we thought our suburban house with a garden, and we had chickens every now and then. We would have like 5 or 10, and that we'd just do eggs there, but that was going to be our forever home. And things just really accelerated ever since 2020, that we had to get out of there. I mean, we had, like, at the local park across the street, I had like a guy trying to sell drugs to like my 8-year-old kid, and I'm like, what is going on here? So that's a big thing that prompted us to get out of kind of our city and change to this rural and homesteading lifestyle. And a lot of it, I've read some books, and I'd have to go through. A lot of it was kind of like rural living, and I don't remember the authors' names. I'll have to look, because a lot of these from Panda, I've heard about that second series there that had the essays and stuff.
The Foxfire
But
books, yeah.
that's right. But as far as that, it was kind of just watching YouTubes and listening to different homestead and rural living content that we got some of our stuff, and like folk knowledge. We've had grandparents that ran a dairy farm in Oklahoma. We had a lot of folks around here that we've become good friends with that have kept and done gardens and animals, and so learning from them about what works and what doesn't has been a big blessing. And so we're definitely in need of a lot of education and learning. So I really appreciate Panda doing the stream and going over a lot of this, because even though we're living it, there's still a lot to learn.
Yeah, well, and I think you hit on one of the major portions there towards the end, in that one of the best resources you have, especially if you move to a new area. But even if you grew up in an area and seem to have an idea of what's going on, talk to the people that are there and figure out why they are raising the type of chickens they're raising, why they're raising the beans that they raise, why this tomato, why this sheep. Figure out what it is that caused the locals to do things the way they did, because a lot of times that's going to be the best. Is They're going to tell you what works, even if they don't tell you what you want to hear. Even if you want to risk it on something else, a different breed, a different variety, a different management style, they're going to tell you what works because they've been doing it, because it works. And I do think that is worth considering at times.
Amen, amen. And yeah, just like with your sheep, you want to stick to. You can get chickens and just breed everything together. You can get pigs and goats, and there are a lot of people that do that. But I think sticking to a specific breed, with a real good function, kind of. And I don't want to compare it too much to purebred dogs, because there are a lot of good mutts that can end up doing well. But with production animals, having your specific breed that's good at laying eggs or being for meat or being for wool, is really key, I've found.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing, is that going all the way back to the beginning, I really wanted to make sure that delineation between an actual sustainable operation versus a homestead was clear, because with a homestead, just go have fun. If
Yeah.
you find out it's not working, try something else. Whatever your goal is, reach that goal inside of the homestead, and don't get stressed out, because it is what it is. You didn't go in this planning to make money or anything. You didn't go into it trying to make make the farm operational in and of itself. So I wouldn't stress out too much. I would just sort of have fun and make it whatever you want it to be. If you want to have 2 pots and a rabbit, or if you just want to have, some tomato plants or some sunflowers, have fun. And if you want to have 300 sheep and still not have it be commercial, well, have at it, my dude. Do whatever you want. But with that, do we have, before we close this out, because I want to start putting a bow on this, did you guys have any questions on resources, on things that we didn't cover, or anything that you wanted more info on?
Could you add them at the end of the stream to X post there? Just a resource of the books, and then that guy that offered the workshops and different things. That would be super helpful.
I will.
Yeah, like a thread with all of the various titles that you just held up.
Yeah, so I will try to do something like that within the next 2 weeks. I'll try to make a resource thread on X. So for anybody that's listening,
Perfect.
you can follow us on X. I will try to have a thread up there for resources. Otherwise, I mean, just sorry, scan back through here. I could probably type in titles of stuff that I showed into the description. Yeah, so I could probably put those up. Don't worry, I'm not monetized, so none of this is ad links or whatever they're called, affiliate links or any of that. It's just because I use this stuff and found it worthwhile. But yeah, I'll get to that probably within the next week, and then an actual resource thread within the next 2 would be my goal. All right, guys. Having said all that, then I'm going to read something from Mr. Wendellberry, and I'll tell you why, and then we'll close this thing out. Sort of in line with Foxfire, in line with the Livestock Conservancy, one of the big things you have to do when considering all of this, whether it's a homestead, whether it's business or anything, you have to stay inspired, and you have to keep sometimes repeatedly within the same day, looking at what the goal is and what is it that's making you pursue certain ends. As you've heard from all of us, obviously God plays a big part in that for each of us and how we want to live our lives. But then if you break it down into a more fractal manner, what is it that the homestead is achieving, or that we're trying to achieve within the homestead? So with that, one of the things that I have found helpful is listening to older voices and how they approach farming, especially in that funny spot where no longer did America have to operate within subsistence farming, but there were people that said it was worth continuing in the 60s, 70s, 80s. It was worth continuing to do something with the land and to not run straight to the city. So this one is untitled. It's simply the 5th poem he has in A Small Porch, which is a collection of Sabbath poems from 2014 and 2015. All right. Mr. Barry says, "The silence of the barn at evening, when the shepherd draws shut the door and starts home for the night, is heavenly. For it says almost aloud that every lamb is found. Every ewe has found her lamb, and is feeding, and is content. There is another of the barn's silences that is heavenly also, for it says that the ewes and their young ones now are gone from it to new pasture. The now green, the first grown grass of the spring, and they are delighted. The shepherd delighted with their delight." And on that note, gentlemen, do some shilling and we're going to get out of here.
Go ahead and precede me, Abbott.
Sounds good. I'm just on X there. Abot Grenfield, aspiring homesteader. Hopefully to be able to reach the knowledge of Panda here someday. And good friend of everybody here. Recommend following everybody. and keeping up on their journeys and their posts. It's all great stuff. So
You will
Cool.
surpass me, Abbott. You will surpass me.
oh, I don't think so.
I believe someone was noted as having once said, no student is greater than his master, yet when he is fully trained, he will be like him. And if you guys don't know what I'm quoting, go look it up. But
So I was gonna say I thought at first it was Yoda, but no, now it wasn't.
it was in fact Jesus Christ.
I realized that
Oh,
about
there we
halfway
go.
through.
That's where Yoda got it from, right there.
Yeah, right.
Panda, you did it before I could do it. I haven't contributed much here, and when you had the Shetland sheep up, I had come to me one of the first poems that I ever commit to memory, and this is William Blake's The Lamb. It's very short. Do you mind if I share it?
Do it.
All right. Little lamb, who made thee? Dost thou know who made thee? Gave thee life and bid thee feed by the stream and o'er the mead. Gave thee clothing of delight, softest clothing, woolly, bright. Gave thee such a tender voice, making all the vales rejoice. Little lamb, who made thee? Dost thou know who made thee? Little lamb, I'll tell thee. Little lamb, I'll tell thee. He is called by thy name, for he calls himself a lamb. He is meek and he is mild. He became a little child. I a child and thou a lamb. We are called by his name. Little lamb, God bless thee. Little lamb, God bless thee.
Amen.
Amen. It was perfect to have you on, especially for that.
Yeah. Thanks for saying so, man. Panda and I will be talking about doing a poetry stream at some point. But in any event,
I'll be
I'm an
tuning into
artist.
that one.
Yeah. I'm an artist of various stripes. You can find my information at my link tree, which is at the simple URL midwhit midwhit.bio bio. So there you have it. Close us out, Panda.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for listening. Gentlemen, thank you for coming and going through this with me. And yeah, if you guys have any questions, I will do my best to answer them. You can either drop them in the comments here or you can reach out on X, and that'll be that. You'll find well, it's because I just brought pigs on, but you'll find pigs and sheep and farm stuff and stuff about, well, I guess I couldn't make it a stream without shilling for Tolkien. So you'll find fun stuff, I guess, on my X. All right, everybody, have a good evening. Adios.